Niece, until you get to where you can respond, you might just give us a thumbs up. I'll ask for the call to order and the roll call.
Okay, for the roll call, Katie Ashley, Hal Bynum,
Present.
Chris Caldwell,
Here.
Lauren Carter,
Here.
Moniece Hagler. I see the thumbs up.
All right.
Art Sparks,
Here.
Julia Wells.
Here.
Mr. Chair, you have a quorum and you may proceed.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yeah, way to
there we
go.
go.
Yes. It's an idea for a phone commercial.
Right.
We noted that Katie Ashley is not here. Katie is the proud, well, she was already a proud parent, but she's a proud parent of a bouncing baby girl that was born yesterday. I talked with some of the people that are kin to her and said she's doing well, the baby's doing well. I remember my wife giving birth to both of my children, and I went to work the next day. I don't understand what the problem is. But I think that they're actually holding her, and she's going to get out of the hospital tomorrow. But we certainly wish her well with her new part of the family. I have some opening remarks that I'm going to make. I'm going to apologize because I'm going to read them word for word because it has to do with the executive order from the governor really allowing us to have this meeting this way. If you remember, the bylaws actually say we have to have a certain number present, and obviously we do not have that. But Executive Order 16 temporarily suspends the requirements of the Tennessee Open Meeting Act to the extent necessary to allow any governing body subject to the requirements to meet and conduct essential business by electronic means if the body determines meeting electronically is necessary to protect health, safety, and welfare of Tennesseans in light of the COVID-19 pandemic. I would like to state for the record that Chancellor Carver and I discussed the benefits of Executive Order 16 and agreed that members of the advisory board participating by electronic means is necessary to protect health, safety, and welfare in light of the coronavirus. Notices of this meeting provided instructions for the public to access the meeting electronically and included a copy of the meeting agenda. The public is able to view these proceedings at utm.edu/AB meeting. Meeting materials have been provided in advance to the board and posted to the advisory board website. All votes will be taken by roll call vote. All members participating by electronic means are deemed to be present at the meeting for purposes of voting. A few helpful tips regarding virtual meeting protocol, which may be useful to share in facilitating our meeting. Please state your name when addressing the group. This is, and I honestly, because of the small size, we probably will know. Also, we will allow questions during the presentations, but we need to minimize interrupting speaker when possible due to technology challenges. And please mute your computer speaker when you are not speaking to eliminate the background noises and minimize feedback. Edie, I guess I would ask whether or not there are any members of the public present on the web, or and if there are, I would like to hear from them.
As they did this morning, let me reiterate, as each of you as board members are sitting there, can you please tell me if anyone has joined you or is in the room with you? Hearing none, then, pardon?
None.
Okay. Hearing none, I would like to introduce UTM's faculty and student members for the upcoming terms effective July 1st to June 30th. First, we have Dr. Philip Smart, who's a professor of natural resource management. Dr. Smart, would you like to say a few words after coming off mute? There you go.
Real quickly, I just want to say I look forward to serving, and I appreciate the work of this body, and I appreciate how they take very seriously the success of Martin, and I look forward to doing my part.
Thank you. We also have the student representative, Ms. Emma Hilliard, who's a junior majoring in HHP from Bells, Tennessee. Emma?
Hi, like Dr. Smart said, I'm really excited and I'm glad I got the opportunity to take this position. I was really excited when I saw what it was and then it was open. So, yeah.
My daughter has spoken very highly of you, Emma, but I will say this, that you are from Crockett County. Is that correct, Keith?
Yes, sir.
That's good.
And Julia.
That's a
And
plus,
Julia.
isn't it?
I can see it now, the University of Tennessee at Crockett County before.
Right.
Hey, we're very happy to have everybody from Crockett County here. We're also very happy to have you, Emma, also. The next item is
Thank you.
the next item is the approval of minutes. I believe the minutes have been sent out to all individuals. I would assume that if you had any issues, you probably emailed Edie back, and to my knowledge, there were no corrections. Do I hear any corrections now? Hearing none, is there a motion we accept the minutes?
I so moved.
So moved by Julia.
So moved.
Okay. And is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. All in favor say aye.
Sorry.
All right,
Have to-
sorry,
roll
I'm
call.
sorry.
Roll
Roll
call.
call vote. I'm sorry.
Okay, Katie Ashley, Hal Bynum,
Aye.
Chris Caldwell,
Aye.
Lauren Carter,
Aye.
Moniece Hagler,
Aye.
Art Sparks,
Aye.
Julia Wells.
Aye.
You have approval.
Thank you. The next item of business is the election of the chair from July 1st of 2020 through June 30th of 2022. There is some information in the packet that was sent on the election of the chair. I went back and read the bylaws and agree that everything is distinct. I guess the appropriate thing here is to open the floor for nominations.
Chairman,
Yes.
Howell here. I would move that we reelect Chairman Sparks for another 2-year term.
Second that.
I third.
Okay. I assume then that the motion, I appreciate, number one, I'm very appreciative and humbled for that. I believe the appropriate thing would be that, since one person's name has been put there, that the motion is actually to close the nominations and approve by acclamation. Is that the motion you had, Hal?
That is precisely the motion I had, Art.
Okay.
Thank you.
Is there a second to that motion?
Second.
Moniece? Moniece
Moniece
seconded.
was a second.
Okay, we'll have a roll call vote.
Katie Ashley, Hal Bynum,
Aye.
Chris Caldwell,
Aye.
Lauren Carter,
Aye.
Moniece Hagler,
Aye.
Art Sparks.
I'll pass.
I'll pass. Julia Wells.
Aye.
Okay, you have approval. You are, again, our chair. Thank you so much.
Thank you, board members, so very much. I will do the best I can with what I have to work with, with the Chancellor. Chancellor, you're actually up next for the COVID-19 campus report. I think you've got some statistics and some other things that, obviously, the campus has been affected just like most businesses have been, and we've all been affected.
Absolutely. And first of all, congratulations.
Thank you.
Real exciting time for the board. I want to thank all of you for your participation in this. And I want to start out by just saying that it has been a tough time for all of us. I do want to say, going into these remarks, that we've had two non-COVID related passings this past week. One of our graduating seniors, Mr. Kirk Maddox, was a senior HHP from Huntington, Tennessee, passed away. Fortunately, Kirk had finished up all of his degree requirements and actually earned his diploma at graduation, and we were excited to do that. But but a huge loss. But also Dr. Hun from history, that was a faculty member in history, also passed away as a result of a long lingering illness. So it's been a tough semester in many respects, but to lose two of our great community members made it even more difficult. March 11th, things started turning, I think, for the world, but certainly for here. And within about 8 days, we went from suspending classes for 3 weeks to a remote platform to very quickly saying we're going to finish the semester online and then move for summer school online. And it's been just a world of uncertainty ever since. I really want to thank 2 groups, actually 3 groups. Our faculty who in January, February, first part of March weren't thinking about remote delivery in the first place, but to pivot and change and get their courses up was just a huge task, and they did it well, and it was difficult. It was difficult, but they have done a great job. Our staff, whether it be our help desk, our folks working in OIT, really help getting people trained quickly enough. But also, and primarily, our students, and I'm looking at Lauren and Emma, the work that our students had to do to get out of the residence halls, get moved, start taking online, and there are a lot of barriers to that. I mean, there's lack of broadband in many of our areas, and so our students have really had the brunt of all this, but they responded really well and have persevered. Obviously, we've got right now 6 students that have been reported to us that have been affected by COVID. All 6 of these students contracted COVID after they left campus. They went back home and have reported to us that actually they were not sick when they left, but actually have gotten sick there. All those appear to be fine and in various stages of recovery, but we're keeping tabs on all our community that impacted by this disease. We have set up a task force, and actually one of our chairs is with us today. Dr. Philip Smart is a co-chair, as is Shannon Deal, who is over our student LPN and over our student health and counseling office. They are working on specifically a couple things. One is, what can we be doing right now? And I'm going to communicate next week some information about some phased reopenings for the remainder of the summer, but also looking at the fall and what does the fall look like. And there's 3 broad scenarios that they're examining, also realizing that within each scenario there are also sub-scenarios that could be evolving. The first one is they're looking at what does a return to campus in the fall as a residential college look like, and certainly it looks a lot different because we've got to employ lots of things for employee and student safety as we move forward if we were to return in the fall in August. Second option is a hybrid. What does a hybrid look like? If we were to start the term online and finished with a general migration back to residential, what does that look like? And third, what's it look like if we're online again, just as we are now? And when you look at all those scenarios, there's so many nuances with each scenario that could happen. So this group is working. It's about 50% faculty, 50% staff. Everybody on it was chosen because they're a content expert in a certain area, and they'll certainly be advising me. They've been working about a week. They'll be advising me, advising the cabinet. That's at the campus level. There's also a system level task force that Randy Boyd has put together, and it is being chaired by a virologist out of the Health Science Center in Memphis, Dr. John McCullers, who has been quoted and has been sought after nationally. He is actually on the city of Memphis and Shelby County's plan for their reopening, but to have someone, one of the beauties of being part of the UT system is to have someone with that caliber knowledge that's not only advising the Health Science Center, but is also helping us at UT Martin. We're obviously in touch with the Commissioner of Health, Dr. Lisa Piercy's office, regularly, and certainly all of our cleaning, all of our activities here on campus are guided by the outlines and guidelines given to us by the Center for Disease Control and Prevention. So daily, we think daily things might be a little more clear, and certainly we're hopeful in the next few weeks they'll be a lot more clear. You all saw that President Boyd announced that we would be working to being open as a residential college experience in the fall. Certainly that would be an ideal, but only if it's safe and only if we see things improving. But even if we do return residential in the fall, things will look a lot different here. You'll see certainly more online offerings, especially in large classes, even looking down to how people do office hours and advising. So there's a lot to think about it. I really appreciate having our task force working with a very well-informed system task force on this project. I think I'll pause there and just ask if there are any questions at this point.
Dr. Carver, are you all also looking at how you might continue online with online degrees?
Well, we are. We're for future. One of the things, and you're going to hear Dr. Cavalier talk about that in a minute, is really expanding, especially in graduate education. And I think all of those graduate offerings will be in online formats. And one of the things this has taught us this spring, I think it's given a lot of people confidence, even at the undergraduate, certainly teaching level, of what the possibilities are and being able to deliver it out. But Julia, it's really interesting when you, as we've talked to students and surveyed students, and I hope Lauren, I think Emma had to drop off, but looking at Lauren, I think one of the things that we've heard back from our students is online is great and they absolutely love it, but it's reinforced I think the need for the residential college experience. You know, when you hear back from them and say, man, my professors are good, but boy, I sure miss walking into Dr. Caldwell's office, or I miss having lunch with my friends in campus, and I miss going to the library. So while I think our online programs will continue to grow and diversify, what we're hearing from our students is, boy, I sure do miss the things associated with being with others, being with my faculty, being with students on the campus. So it's really reinforced the need of how much our students love a residential experience. So it's been really interesting. Lauren, I don't know if you have a comment about that from a student perspective?
Sorry, I had to unmute myself.
That's okay.
But I think a lot of, like, you're right, like, online can be good, but I think a lot of students, and this includes me as well, it's just like, it's hard when you're a visual learner or you're a hands-on learner, and with online, you don't get that. And of course, like for business students or something like that, online courses may be flowed into easier, but for science majors like myself, things like labs and our science classes, it's really hard to do that online. It's really hard to get across what you need to do online. So I think it's just, it depends on what you're doing and it depends on how you learn. So online, I'm not saying it's not great. Our online is great, but there's also challenges that come with that for sure.
I guess my question, Dr. Carver, is addressing the fact that I am seeing multiple unknown to me universities, independent universities, et cetera, that are offering online degrees. And if I were a parent who has not had a college experience myself, And while I totally agree with what you're talking about in the college experience, if you haven't been there, you don't know what you're going to miss. And I guess my concern was, are we going to get our fair share of the online degree people? Because I think that's coming in a greater number than has been in the past. I mean, people have been able to get an online degree now. But if I were a parent with very limited means, I'd have to take a long look at, am I going to pay for a dorm room and off-campus eating and et cetera, versus paying just for the degree? And I just wanted the comfort level to know that we at UT Martin are considering that seriously.
It's a great question, and we are. You do see people looking at or hear people talking about University of Phoenix, Western Governors, some of these online degree producing for-profit initiatives. We just did, and I'll forward you all, if Edie will help me remember. There was a survey that I saw just this morning, that the Tennessee survey that polled parents from all across the state. Now, this is for the traditional age college student, and 75% of those parents said as soon as there was an all clear, as soon as things seemed to be improving, that they felt comfortable sending their children back to school. And so that was, to me, I appreciated seeing that. And by the way, it was not a UT survey, so let me couch that out there. It was a private group. But when you look at the student surveys that have come out, especially through the Chronicle of Higher Education, the current seniors, their desire to still go off and have the residential experience is in the 88 to 90 percentile. So parents are still at the 75% level. We want to send our children want to go back to college. And then the incoming students are relatively undaunted and say they still want the primary residential experience. And so I hope that persists. What we are trying to brace for is people making last-second decisions to stay home and go to a college or university in their backyard. And we're still waiting. Now, right now, we were way up in terms of our freshman class. Right now, our committed to enrolled students for the fall, we're only up 1.6%. So that gap's closed from about 4% to about 1.6%. We hope some of that comes back as we get a clear picture of what things are going to look like, but we just don't know. But Knoxville, Chattanooga, and Martin are all seeing that decline in people that are putting deposits down to come. Across the state, Mike Krause from THEC has said flat is good this year. If you could maintain the enrollment you had last year, that would be considered a good thing. Right now, we're still slightly up. But I think we're going to know a lot more about where students go at the end of July. I think we're going to hear, you know what, I'm staying home or no. And that goes two ways too, Julia. There are some good West Tennessee students that have been going out, wanting to go out of state or somewhere else that we think we might have an opportunity to pick up here and stay a little closer to home too. So there's still so many unknowns, but with the parents and students alike, they're showing high confidence levels in, despite what's happening, given what I know now, I'd like for my child to go back, or I'd still like to go to residential school.
Of course, right now, since that child's been home with them about 2 months, that may have a lot to do with it.
You know, Julia, I visited with a young lady from Henry County that for 3 years she knew she was going to UT Chattanooga. And she told me about 2 weeks ago, says, you know, I put my application in and I'm going to UT Martin because of this COVID-19. I sort of had rather be a little bit closer to home. So I think that works really both ways. You know, you mentioned some of the students having issues with no broadband, and hopefully there's not that many, but how are you addressing that?
I tell you, it's been case by case, and the faculty, and we've got Dr. Caldwell and Dr. Smart here. A lot of times, they're the first people to hear about it, and for a while, it was great being part of this statewide network. We could send students to the extension offices, and extension was letting people come in and use a conference room. And well, when those started closing, and then all of a sudden libraries started closing, it got challenging, and our students had to get creative. Now, we packaged together as many laptops, and looked at hotspots. Some students would actually drive in to a neighboring community college and would sit in a parking lot and do things. And so it was piecemeal as students, and there were so many students, and I don't know, Dr. Caldwell, Dr. Smart, you want to hear that we don't know that they had problems. They just had to figure it out. Now, for the future, one of the things we're talking about with Petra is, and IT is looking at loaner hotspots that we can get off cell service that we can loan out to our students. And that's one thing, but boy, it showed the deficiencies in our rural remote areas. I don't know, Dr. Smart, Dr. Caldwell?
Hey, Keith, let me just jump in and say that Amy's already received shipment of the 250 hotspots, and she's sent out information to campus about if you have a student who doesn't have reliable internet. So that we're already doing that for the summer.
Thank you, Dr. Cavalier.
Yeah, I was going to point that out. And one of the things we talked about in our tech meeting was that with some of the students that we'll send these hotspots to, it isn't that they don't have internet at home, but they have siblings that are also trying to do things online, and they're having difficulty having stable service. And so, yes, those came in Wednesday, and we're already getting ready to send some out.
Good. I know Lauren talked about some of the issues, being, especially in science and the labs and a hands-on, and I certainly understand that. I would ask you, Dr. Smart, and you, Dr. Caldwell, and Lauren, what other problems have you run into that we haven't been able to overcome on the online? Because right, wrong, or indifferent, this is going to be the education of the future to some degree.
One of the problems several of my students ran into that the university can't address very well is that some of my students' parents lost their jobs, and the student became the primary breadwinner for the family. And then that required a certain set schedule, and we worked around that schedule as much as we can, but we cannot really help them with their financial problems as they try to support their families.
That's a great point.
Yeah, or another struggle that I had with students is that now that they're home, maybe their parents are taking on other responsibilities to make up jobs that they've lost, and they're having to care for siblings who are not at school now but are at home, and that becomes a major obstacle as well.
Thank you.
Another thing I think as I've seen like a lot of my friends have trouble with is things like the financial aid office and the bursar's office, because a lot of those things it's really hard to do over email, but they're only like available over email. And I know a lot of students wish they could just call and actually talk to an actual person instead of going through like a long email chain, and then the problem never gets solved pretty much.
Okay.
But I think other than that, like I agree with Dr. Smart and Dr. Caldwell on what they said too.
Dr. Carver and I talked about the 7 people associated with the university that have reported that they had a problem, and I think he is satisfied that the contact with the COVID-19 disease did not happen at UT Martin, that it was off. And I would probably say Julia and Hal and Monice and really anybody, how have y'all been affected? How's Pick Suite been affected, Julia? You're on mute. You're on mute. There you go.
We basically have everybody that was in the office, which is about probably 120 people working from home.
Okay.
We did move some people to offices in a warehouse in Brownsville and some to offices in a warehouse in Bells. In Jackson. In our Bells office, we have a lot of cubicles. And so we've moved everybody out of those into home. And actually, it's working well. In our graphics department, I have one of our graphic designers that lives between Medina and Trenton, maybe, and one that is in Oakland. And they're having a really difficult time saving and sending files that have large files.
Yeah.
But other than that, we're having this kind of meeting. I had 3 yesterday. And the staff, my immediate staff, we are on a Zoom chat, and it's working great. A lot of our people, particularly the ones that are doing things like order entries or receiving orders or ordering packaging, things that they are a one-man show, like it. They say there are much less distractions at home and that work is going well. I think we're going to be here for a while. The fact that the state has opened up, I don't believe we're fixing to open up for a while. We are very lucky. We have not had a case in any of our plants, but we've done a lot of work. Individuals coming into work, staggered coming into work. We've removed some lines in the plant so that people are separated further, taking temperatures before they come in, doing all those things that have been doing it for a good while.
Okay.
So we watch what's going on in the meat industry, and we've been very lucky because we've had nothing as far as any cases. Of course, Crockett County has only, I think, 7 cases to begin with, and I think every one of those were out of a nursing home. So it's a challenge, very costly, but it certainly is working well, and our volume's about double. So there's some
That's good.
positive things going on.
Monice, is the court system open in Shelby County? You're on, yeah, there you go.
Okay, I'm sorry.
All right, is
Give
the
me that
court
question again.
Is the court system still open? Are you able to operate in Memphis?
No, actually, they are shut down and they're doing online and Zoom meetings as well.
Yeah.
I have a small office, so we're alternating working from home, and I'm in the office today, but mostly 1 or 2 days a week in, and then working remotely, etc.
Hal, are the farmers? I know the rain hadn't been a problem, but but how are the farmers doing?
We've had a really good year in spite of this. It lends itself to our business, the restrictions, a lot better than most because we're not as confined. We're out in the field and away from each other a lot, and we've functioned very well. One of my sister stores in Pembroke, Kentucky, had a case, and it kind of put us all on edge and all on guard, and we implemented a lot of office rules that I never expected, but we've complied with them, and so far everything has worked quite well. We are essential, but I try to tell my people every day that essential does not mean immune, and it's so far so good.
Good. Any other questions of Dr. Carver about the COVID-19? Hearing none, then we will move to the strategic enrollment report. Provost, who's going to do that? Is
Dr.
Cavalier. I'll tell you what, I'm just going to turn it over to you, Dr. Cavalier, and then you can introduce your other people. Fair enough?
Sure, absolutely. Well, good afternoon, everybody. Thrilled to be here, and I want to start by introducing Lou Sanborn, Dr. Lou Sanborn, who has been helping us for the last 10 months. He works with Ruffalo Levitz, which is, well, they do a lot of things all around enrollment management, and this is one part of their work. You know, we started it, as I said, 10 months ago, and it was there was a lot to do, and we have gotten to the point now where we're going to share with you essentially the final draft, the draft before our final version that includes, as you saw, the strategies that we have come up with to increase enrollment, and we'll talk through each of those. I do want to mention one thing, the online piece, we have added, we're going to add some more programs, but Julia, we also just started criminal justice online, a bachelor's degree, so that's another program. I agree with the chancellor. I mean, this is certainly first and foremost a face-to-face institution, but with all the uncertainty, the more options that we have for students to get a UTM degree, the better. So anyway, the timing of this, I don't think it could have been better. No one could have predicted it, of course, but you know, we now have a very very thoughtful plan that is based on data and market research that allows us to, I think, get ahead of what might be coming with some of the downturns with the COVID pandemic. So what we're going to do, Lou is going to share the screen, and he's going to walk through and make some comments on the PowerPoint presentation that you had in your board materials. So Lou, I'm going to turn it over to you, and I'll jump in where necessary, and please stop us and if you need to ask a question.
Great, thanks, Phil, and thank you all for inviting me to your meeting today. It's I get invited to a fair number of board meetings, and it's really nice to be able to do this one from my home office. As Phil mentioned, we've been working on this project for about 10 months, and the presentation that you're going to see here is pretty identical to the presentation we shared with UTM system leadership about a month ago, and is in a nutshell encapsulates the overall project. We firmly believe that we needed to build a strategic enrollment plan that would allow UT Martin to really fulfill its mission. And so we've come back to this periodically through the process to test our assumptions and to test our initiatives and make sure they're there. And I would reinforce this notion that Phil said. I think we were almost prescient. You brought RNL in to work on this project because you anticipated a very significant demographic cliff in the reduction of the traditional high school population around 2025. And we know that's going to happen. But these strategies almost all look like they could have been designed to respond to a post-pandemic environment. Very briefly, I'll tell you that our strategic enrollment planning process at RNL goes through 4 phases. We are really in phase 3 right now. We started with, as Phil mentioned, lots of data analysis. We looked at as much internal data as we could. RNL also engaged in an academic program demand analysis, where we looked at external data. We looked at program comparisons. We looked at workforce development data to know which occupations were growing. From that, we moved into strategy, ideation, and development. And this has been a hugely inclusive process. We have 5 working groups that we put together on campus, all led by really strong university employees. Those working groups then engaged broader campus community so that it's a collaboratively developed process. These are all UT Martin strategies. I may have made some recommendations along the way, but I think there's an amazing level of commitment and consensus that these are areas where we should be focusing our effort on. You can see here, and I'll just mention this slide briefly. This is the process we've gone through. My visits to campus, first visit on July 9 and 10. Most recently, the April 15th, 16th visit was obviously completed remotely. And I'm thrilled that I could make 6 visits to campus and really get to know everybody before we had to do one of these visits remotely. And we'll do visit 8 remotely as well. And that's really, you're going to see the framework of the plan on the next slide. We're putting narrative into the actual strategic enrollment planning document. As the university and the system, finalizes funding for these initiatives, we may continue to make some adjustments, but we'll be in a place where by the end of June, we'll have a written document to be able to share, and then we'll get to work, and I'll plan on hopefully making an on-site visit in October 2020 to see where we are and make sure we're making a transition from planning to management. It's this slide that really is the meat of our plan, and the left-hand column that says phase 1 are initiatives that we are confident will be able to move forward. There are a number of different kinds of strategies right now listed on phase 2 on the right, and I will tell you that that right-hand side is not necessarily a comprehensive list of all the things that we've initiated and that we have going on. You'll notice that there is not a first-year experience or an advising plan as part of the strategic enrollment plan. That's partly because the first-year experience is being run on a parallel track through the institutional strategic plan, and advising will likely live there as well. But the phase 1 initiatives on the next slide, I'll show you that in a minute, is where our budget is living for these initiatives and our enrollment projections. And I'll be honest, I do not have a crystal ball. I was really glad to hear Keith's update on enrollment. You're still running ahead of last year, but that percentage has shrunk a little bit. What we're seeing across the country is a real mixed bag. I had a call with a four-year private institution earlier today that's still running ahead of deposits compared to last year. And I have a colleague at a regional comprehensive in an urban center that is significantly down from last year. So I think I would actually suggest, if you're curious about what we're seeing in the environment, four-year urban institutions may be at greater risk of enrollment decline this fall. I think rural institutions are going to have some significant advantages, partly because of the perception of safety that accrues to the rural environment. The plans on the right are clustered. The comprehensive marketing plan lives by itself. I'll come back to that in a second. We have some undergraduate program development plans. We have a cluster of graduate program development plans. We have the CT stands for centers, and S stands for student success. GP is graduate program, UP is undergraduate program. But we've kind of clustered those center and success plans together because a lot of our success efforts are really being focused on our work at the centers through this plan. And then the financial literacy plan really lives with the student success one also. As Phil mentioned, we've done a lot of external research. What you see in those 3 undergraduate plans, 2 for phase 1, 1 for phase 2, there's significant demand for computer science, particularly cybersecurity. The higher education enterprise across the country cannot keep up with the demand for qualified graduates. You've got phenomenal leadership in your computer science department and are already making early stages to develop an ABET accredited cybersecurity program, which will make it one of barely a handful in the country. So you should be able to compete not only in Tennessee, but regionally in a really productive way for cybersecurity students. The Vet Tech conversion and expansion program is about moving that program to a major. We anticipate growth in that program actually no matter what you do. UTM has such an amazing reputation in ag and ag-related disciplines. There's really high demand from students and lots of job opportunities. So that Vet Tech program, we really anticipate growth almost no matter what we do, but it's in the plan because there are fiscal expectations, particularly the way you are compensating your lab folks. And your accrediting agency has raised a flag a couple of times about compensation rates for those people. So the bulk of the dollars in that plan is actually for existing staff. We believe that we should phase the development and the offering of a construction management bachelor's degree into phase 2, partly because you don't have the facility ready for that yet. And we'd like to align the ability to offer that program with a readiness for your updated the building the project. they have underway right now. That's another one where we see significant demand, lots of job opportunities. And that will also serve as a productive off-ramp program for students who come to UTM thinking they want to do engineering, but don't quite have the quantitative skills to succeed in engineering. Having that construction management degree is a way to keep those students at UTM and help them provide a career, an education and a career pathway that aligns with their interests.
Lou, let me just jump in and say that we're going to be announcing, I don't believe we've done it yet, a new chair of engineering who has a very extensive background in construction management and engineering. So we're bringing someone on board who does this.
Yeah, and that's another important point to make, Phil, is that we've identified programs generally here that align really well with existing faculty expertise. So there are some places where, when enrollment warrants, we'll need to add faculty, but in most cases, any new faculty additions will be designed to phase following enrollment growth. So they're pretty safe bets in that regard. On the graduate side, you can see 4 offerings, 3 in phase 1, 1 in phase 2. That special ed autism concentration, again, you already have the faculty expertise there to pull that off. There's really high demand in the K-12 sector for autism experts, and so we see great market demand and opportunity there. You'll see kind of a funny abbreviation on the Human Resource Management Plan. When we initiated development of that, it was because the market research suggested that there was significant demand for undergraduate human resource management. And what we found as we dug deeper into the research is that our greatest opportunity really for human resource management is for a specialization more aligned with the MBA than at the undergraduate level. Most undergraduate students don't go to college thinking they want to get into HR departments. So we're much more likely to find a student population there that's looking for an advanced credential because they're already in the workforce. Our third graduate initiative is to begin offering graduate programs at the centers. This is a multi-phased plan with the idea of offering 2 graduate programs, not this year, but in the following year, and adding a 3rd graduate program after that. We're seeing increasing demand for graduate opportunities at the centers. Right now, all of your graduate offerings are online. And as we have an opportunity to begin offering some on-ground options, we believe that incorporating that opportunity at the centers can provide some really good traction for us. The Master of Science in Social Work already has a plan in development. We believe that plan needs a little sharper data analysis to make sure it's really going to provide return on investment. We do know that there's substantive demand for workers with graduate level social work credentials. And so we're quite confident we can fill multiple cohorts over time, but it's going to be an expensive program to run simply because of accreditation expectations and the number of faculty you'd have to hire. So that program is still in development, but not quite ready to determine when we launch it. Bottom cluster of plans, a center support plan is actually almost free. That's almost a policy and procedure plan. There's been a tendency at UTM for some time to try and drive students from the centers to the main campus, to try and discourage online enrollment, move students to face-to-face. In that center support plan is some opportunity to provide just-in-time services and support that historically we've asked students to go to the main campus and work with full-time faculty for. And so we can make some minor policy adjustments with the support of the faculty and make sure we can get students just-in-time advising, especially new students. The faster we can get a prospective student at a center registered, the more likely they are to matriculate. So we see some real opportunities there. We also see really important opportunities to expand our articulation efforts with 2-year schools. As I mentioned earlier, part of the impetus for this planning process was the anticipated demographic cliff in 2025 with a reduction in high school seniors, and focusing on our community college partners and students who have some college and no degree is one really important way to compensate for anticipated declines in that 18 and 19-year-old population. Like a lot of institutions, UTM has done a phenomenal job developing onboarding orientation experience programs for students at the main campus. Have not done such a good job for students at the centers, whether that's adult undergraduates or graduate students. And so we have an intentional plan there to strengthen onboarding programs for non-first year populations. An absolutely essential element in that plan is a full-time transcript evaluator. Right now, UTM has a part-time person, kind of a part-time occasional worker doing transcript evaluations. And we know that transfer students oftentimes want to see what's going to come in before they'll even decide to apply. And so getting that position online as quickly as possible will be significant. The next to the last plan I'll talk about is the financial literacy one, because I need to come back to the marketing plan. The financial literacy plan is an imperative from your accreditor. SACS is insisting that institutions have explicit financial literacy plans. That's going to be even more important in a post-COVID environment as people are, as the employment situation is going to be slow to rebound coming out of that. So that's another plan that we phased personnel needs in so that we can prioritize one person and then as enrollment warrants, bring that up. I saved the marketing plan for last because it's by far the largest plan. And when I roll to the next slide, you'll see that of the approximately 1.2 million we projected in needs for these initiatives, that marketing plan is about 3/4 of that, about $900,000. And the biggest chunk of those dollars are actually marketing and advertising dollars for to make available for your agency so that we can be nimble and quick to respond to market needs. If you watch any network television now, you know that national and regional marketers have responded incredibly quickly to COVID to try and keep their customers engaged. And it's really important that UTM be able to do that as well. Having that agency at hand will allow us to be incredibly nimble in the marketplace. There are also some persons there. We need people to help us develop quality videos, whether that's there's a videographer already in the budget, but a producer, a social media expert. We really need to make sure that we're active in the mediums where our prospective students and our other key stakeholders are. So that marketing plan is a significant part of where we are. Questions about those, or Phil, anything you want to add before I go to the bottom line slide?
No, I think I'll just go ahead to the next one, and I can say something towards the end.
Sure. So what you see on this slide is the roll-up of our impact, and the light blue is our deduplicated enrollment impact, and that's as we looked at each plan, we also realized that there were going to likely be some interaction effects among plans. So we just didn't want to take the estimates from each plan and stack them on top of each other. We clustered the plans together, and then we modified the enrollment impact where we thought there might be some duplicated efforts. And then so that's what that deduplicated enrollment impact is. If we reduced the enrollment impact, we reduced the anticipated revenue, and this is net revenue per student. So we looked at the average number of dollars that an average student, both undergraduate and graduate, we separated them out by plan type, brings into the university. So it's less than what a full-time student would bring, more than what a part-time student would bring, and also adjusted for a fraction of room and board revenues. So we deduplicated the enrollment, then we deduplicated the revenue, and then we layered in an overall risk factor to bring down those enrollment estimates and the revenue estimates again. But we kept all of our expense estimates constant because we're going to do those initiatives and we're going to have those expenses. So what you see on the green line is the deduplicated revenue, and then the revised revenue with the second deduplication at the last area of the black box. Total expenses in salmon, and then total net revenue. So you can see there are already some dollars expended in 1920. We wanted to make sure we captured those, so we captured full cost of the initiatives. We are anticipating a growth of 78 students in fall 2020, or overall for the 2020-21 academic year. The caveat there is we just don't know what COVID-19 is going to do to our baseline enrollment impact. So we are cautiously optimistic given the numbers that we're seeing, but we realize that it's probably going to be July or August before we have a real, be much more confident about that. The good news is the majority of the impact of these, particularly the program development initiatives, aren't projected to hit until 2021, where we think we'll be back closer to normal business, and we'll have those new programs developed and up and running. And so if we can generate 355 students above our 2019-20 baseline enrollment numbers, we expect those students to generate about $1.5 million in additional revenue for the university, or sorry, 1.7 on an expense of 1.5. So we should be revenue positive in year 2, and then simply increase that rate of cumulative revenue gain over the 6 years that we projected here. Questions, comments?
Just want to point out at the bottom right, based on these projections, that bottom right number would be the cumulative 5-year net revenue added. Now, as Lou said, that might be different because of COVID, but we've tried to be very conservative in this modeling process so that we don't overstate what we think is possible.
And the other good news about this is it's 2025 where we anticipate that initial drop in high school population. Tennessee's going to be, I think, a fairly average state in terms of how that demographic decline begins. And so part of the urgency here is we wanted to make sure we had these growth strategies in place well before that anticipated decline. The last slide that has any content on it, I want to set up a little bit before I roll to it. And that's because we knew in this planning process that a $900 ask for a marketing plan was significant. And that the inclination for some might be to remove, to try and go low on the marketing initiative. So what we did is we built an alternate model and we took the marketing dollars out. But when we took the marketing dollars out, we also changed our risk failure rate. We ramped that from 15% in the model that you saw in the previous slide to 50%. Because we're not confident that without those marketing dollars, we'll be able to attract students to the new programs that we're building. Or to the centers to the degree that we believe we can attract students to the centers. And so if we save that $900,000 in the first year and then approximately $800,000 in the subsequent years, it's significant, but we layer in significantly more risk because we're less confident in our projections. Our 6-year estimate drops below 5 million from 14 million. So we're really talking about a $900,000 difference in anticipated outcome. The other thing I'll tell you, in all honesty, we're much more confident in the numbers in the first 3 years than we are in the out years. And the efforts that we make in those first 2 years, in particular, will be significant in determining what happens in the out years. If we can get those new programs built, that cybersecurity, all the evidence we see on cybersecurity is that the addition of that program will not only generate significant new students for that program itself, it'll also generate additional enrollments in your basic computer science major. That construction management degree will attract new students and it will retain engineering students.
So as Lou mentioned, these are the things that we decided needed to be in the strategic enrollment plan. But there is another group, or there are 5 other groups that are working on implementing the strategic plan that was built 2 years ago. And so there are student success initiatives in that as well. We wanted to make sure we're not duplicating effort, but the combination of the two will both help with student success, but I think make these numbers, which were conservative because we wanted to be careful, I think harder numbers because they will contribute as well to keeping students and bringing students.
Dr. Cavalier.
So are there questions? I'm sorry?
Dr. Cavalier.
Yes, sir.
Something resonated with me when he was talking about the onboarding of the non-first year students. Has there been any movement on making the transfer of credits, which sounds like to be a big hurdle in that, between institutions? I know there was a committee appointed. I think you were on it, or somebody. Okay.
Yeah. No. Yes, I'm on it to the extent that it exists.
Okay. I think I know where you're going with this then.
Yes. Well, let me say that we can control the transfer piece with the community colleges, and that's where those transfer articulation agreements are very important. So we can say to Dyersburg State, a student, here are the 13 programs that you could take at Dyersburg State, and here are 13 pieces of paper that will tell you what you will transfer in from Dyersburg State. That's very clear. But I'll be honest, we have not moved forward. Okay. The system has not moved forward on that issue of transferability by dropping certain requirements if you're at UTC coming to UTM or something like that. And I wish I had something different to report, but that's where we stand with that piece. But it is important.
Do we have good enough relationships with the community colleges that the kids that go there know on the front end what they have to take to be able to get in UT Martin?
Well, that's, yes. I mean, right now, Jackson State, the relationship over the last couple of years has developed, improved significantly. Right. Part of that comprehensive articulation plan includes essentially having advisors, UT Martin advisors, going over to Dyersburg and Jackson State to meet with those students early on to talk about exactly that issue. But they'll also have the information given to them when they get there. But it's very important that we have someone who can go over and talk to them and say, you're interested in nursing, here's what you have to make sure you take at Dyersburg if you want to come and finish at Martin.
Okay, perfect. Martin. Perfect. Yeah. Thank you. Any other questions of Lou or Dr. Cavalier? Hearing none then. Anything else you want to add, Dr. Cavalier or Dr. Sandberg?
We're going to be working on this, and there are some other things that have already been in place or in process. A new master's program in sports performance and coaching that will be starting in January, assuming that we get THEC and board approval. Working towards a mechanical engineering major. We right now have an engineering major with concentrations, and that will make a big difference with recruiting. So these things are part of what's happening, but we know we've got to do a lot of work to ensure that, especially now that COVID has happened, that we do not have a 15 or 20% drop that go the other way.
Dr. Sandberg, I would ask you, how do we compare to other universities you work with? And that may be unfair, but it's the question.
No. I've got to tell you, this has been one of my favorite projects for several years. The people at UTM have absolutely been a pleasure to work with, and not just because Phil and I have very similar senses of humor, or because Keith Carver is an absolute joy to work with. But the people on the ground, every single person who was involved in this project, if they were given homework, they did it. They did it on time. They did it well. They asked good questions. They weren't afraid to reach out if they needed support. It has been an absolute pleasure to work with this group of people. So there's something extremely healthy about the culture. I've said to Phil many times, I learned a long time ago that we could do excellent work and build high quality projects and get along and have fun in the process. And I think we've lived that.
Thank you.
Although I got to tell you, if you try to go to lunch with Keith Carver in the student dining room, it's going to be a long time before he sits down.
Well, that's okay. He's got a great relationship with the students. You might tell RNL we would be more than happy to name a building or something after you guys, after you make your contribution to UT Martin. You know, never miss an opportunity to ask, okay?
Always be closing.
Yeah, so an institution that works with 1,700 of the colleges and universities in the country, that's tough to prioritize those.
We will not tell anyone.
And we wouldn't tell a soul. Anonymous donor.
Thank you very much for the presentation. I'm anxious to see how the next 2 or 3 years turns out on this, as we all are.
I'm looking forward to seeing the results too, and thanks for letting me crash your party.
Thank you.
Thank you, Lou.
Bye.
Next item in tab is the budget with tuition and fees overview. Peter, I assume that you've probably already spending the money that he's talking about. Is that right?
We certainly have a number of needs.
She's looking under couches, is what she's trying to say. Couch cushions.
As we all know, because Petra has addressed us before, she is the person with the purse strings at UT Martin and does an outstanding job. Petra, I'll turn it over to you.
Well, thank you. We will start our budget discussion just looking at where we are now in terms of budget. For our education and general revenue, we are at $1.4 million. The majority of that comes from tuition and fees at 61%, which is roughly $63 million. And the other significant contributor as a revenue source is state appropriation. Our base budget does not currently reflect any adjustments for our recent COVID-19 situation that we're in. We have received, or we have been awarded $5.1 million in CARES Act money, which would not be reflected here. Half of that money actually is required to go to students directly for any type of disruption expenses, and that will be $2.5 million. The additional money that actually comes to the institution is the other half is it's actually $2,555,156, but I'm not counting.
It's an art sports answer, right?
I'm not counting dollars here. But that money, we are still receiving guidance as to what that can cover. It has to cover disruption, but we have had to make a number of refunds to students. And so we're looking at guidance as to whether or not the institutional portion of the CARES Act will allow us to receive or use that money to cover our refunds, because it's a loss of revenue. So we're receiving guidance on that to see what we can spend. The next item looks at our base expenditures for our E&G, and all of this is unrestricted expenditures. Of course, the most significant portion is reflected in our instruction function, and that is $45.3 million. The next item that is also a significant portion, falls in our student services area, which is 13% of the budget. Our operations and maintenance, which is also our plant, as well as our scholarships, are at 12% of our budget. So we have a pretty good distribution of our funds as it relates to our instruction being the most significant, our student services being second, and then our plant and our scholarships being the next larger expenditures. Currently, we're looking at the state appropriations for next year, and we're actually looking at that based on the most current information we have. There have been signals that that will likely change when the state legislators return in June. But based on the most recent schedule we received from the Tennessee Higher Education Commission, our net change from our funding formula would be a reduction of $74,800. The state appropriations currently includes a 1.5% salary increase pool, nearly $500,000, and then additional money for health insurance premium, about $150,000. Looking at the changes of what that would be for us, our FY21 proposed operating appropriations would be $36,322,300. We have additional appropriations for access and diversity, as well as funding for our Center of Excellence, which is actually in our College of Agriculture. And our total state appropriations as of today is $37,190,045. Current tuition and fees, current tuition and fees, and particularly focusing on our mandatory fees, are $1,534. The most significant portion falls into our program and service fees, which includes student activity, our green fees, and our debt service. The next is technology, and then we also have a publications fee, which is only paid by our undergraduate students, and a facilities fee of $150,000. What we're proposing for next year looks very similar to what we have this year, with a slight increase in technology fee of $10. So that's really the only change, an increase of $10, making the technology fee $260 per year. That would bring our mandatory fees to $1,544.
These are annual fees.
These
not
are annual
semester.
fees, correct. These. So just kind of looking at our admissions peers, these are institutions that our admissions department identified as some of the places that our students, or that we feel like we compete with. And so just there are a number of them that come into play, but a significant portion of them show that we are really close to where they fall. With tuition and fees, we're at $9,758. And then if you move to our comparable peers, very similar. We are very close to several of the institutions that we've identified. These peers were identified by Academic Affairs and Institutional Research as very similar type of institutions that we compare ourselves. And oftentimes when we report to the Board of Trustees, we report with this peer group. There's also additional peers that we have as aspirational, and Martin kind of falls a little bit in between some of them, but probably more closely with University of Central Arkansas as being a very similar size in terms of the tuition rate, and Marshall University being slightly lower. Murray State, which is also oftentimes a regional competitor, is very close to us in tuition and mandatory fees. So there's really not much change there because we haven't changed rates, and several of the other institutions have signaled that they will not be increasing tuition and fees as well. So I think that's where we are just as a nation, is looking at that and being sensitive to what's going on with the COVID-19. So our proposed tuition and fees, as outlined, will remain very similar to what we had before. The undergraduate maintenance fee, which is often called our in-state fee, will remain at $8,214 in our recommendation, with mandatory fees that would be $9,758. Those rates are also in effect at the centers. Our graduate maintenance fee for in-state would be $9,096, and the tuition and mandatory fees for graduates would be $10,626. The other rates would remain the same, again, only increasing the $10 for the mandatory fee for technology fee. Similarly, our tuition change, not having much of an adjustment, would essentially have our proposed budget for the current operating being very similar to what we have now. Our revenue and expenditures for unrestricted ENG would be $104,821,000. Our auxiliaries at $10,124,300, bringing our unrestricted funds at $114,945,300. The restricted funds for next year are projected at $34,654.200, with the total current operating funds at $149,599,500 for our total operating budget for next year. And these are our proposed numbers based on what we know now and where we are in our preparation for the proposed budget. Again, these numbers do not reflect anything that would be related to COVID-19, any projections for that, and it currently does not reflect any changes for the strategic enrollment plan.
I think I heard you say that the CARES Act is not in
Correct.
these numbers
It
yet.
is not. Those funds actually come in as restricted funds, and we anticipate having those by the end of the current fiscal year, FY20. So they will not actually show up in our 21 proposed budget.
When you say some of it is set aside for directly help students, and your hotspots, for example, do you think that would fall under?
That would actually come from the institutional portion
Institutional
of the
portion.
CARES.
Okay.
The half of the money will go directly to the students.
Directly to the students.
They
to
want
help
that
them.
to be
Okay.
in their hands to use for expenses they've incurred from the disruption.
Okay.
And as the institution works to make that situation better, the hot spots that just came in will come from the institutional portion the institution's portion of the CARES money.
You think there's enough flexibility that you'll be able to handle anything that comes along on COVID-19? And I know that's an unfair question because we don't know, but is there some flexibility that you might have to make some adjustments in this budget?
We will likely have to utilize several resources that we have available.
Okay. Charlie Deal's should be able to take care of everything.
I am leaning very heavily on our
His 12-month
University
probationary
Advancement Office.
That's right.
But in all seriousness, we are looking at the use of gift funds to help us in this process.
Okay. Are there any questions of Petra? Hearing none, one of the requirements that we have is for this advisory board to approve the annual operating proposal and the tuition. And then that's ultimately submitted to the UT board, who will have final approval, obviously. Hearing no other questions, is there a motion that we accept the operating budget and the tuition schedule as presented?
So moved.
Okay. We have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
We have a second from Julia. Assuming and hearing no other questions, all in favor, we're going to have a roll call. I know. I was just seeing if you were listening, Edie.
Okay, I just woke up again. Yes, yes. Katie Ashley, Hal Bynum,
Aye.
Chris Caldwell,
Aye.
Lauren Carter,
Aye.
Moniece Hagler,
Here.
I hear you. Thank you. Art Sparks,
Aye.
Julia Wells,
Aye.
thank you. You have a approved budget.
I will comment, as we finalize the proposed budget, we will report the final numbers that.
I believe there's also a provision in there which allows there to be 5% move between lines. Will not surprise me if you don't have to come back with some of that, because again, the hopefully you won't have to, but the deeper we get into this, I think there's going to be some challenges, unfortunately, for you.
Yes.
But Charlie's going to take care of that.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Dr. Carver, I believe you're up next on the Clery Act process.
Clery Act, yes, sir. Mr. Chair, Advisory Board, if you'll look at, I believe, tab 5, we just wanted to provide you all a snapshot of what's happened. As you know, over the past year, as you know, the Clery Act is a consumer protection law that aims to protect transparency around campus crime policy and statistics. And there's an annual reporting that goes not only the state but the federal government, and wanted to let you all know that really for the past 10 months we have been very engaged with not only creating better processes here, but also working with the UT system to determine some best practices and sharing some resources in that way. The big piece is last August we had 9 individuals from across campus that got together with attorneys and resource officers at the system to start meeting weekly to really talk about how we were reporting, what offices were involved, who was responsible for reporting what, and then set about to making sure that everyone that had a Clery responsibility received some additional training. And so now all of our public safety officers have been through that training, and we feel really good about where we are. I think the biggest thing that we've done here is really created what we call the Clery Compliance Daily Crime Log, and it lists everything that comes through, whether it be initiating the residence halls, whether it be come out of a classroom issue, out of the university center issue, but all of it filters to one single spot for recording, and we're real happy about that. So the final thing that I'll just mention that you all might be interested in is we have to have a geography map for Clery reporting, and that's not only campus, but that's if Petra McPherson takes an athletic team down to Jackson, Mississippi, and play. That hotel and that arena and those restaurants also become Clery reporting areas. So it's very comprehensive. Primarily, just wanted you all to know that we're on top of this and working it. It's become a real priority for the state. Obviously, it's a federal requirement, but just wanted to present to you the information that sort of shows our processes in place, and we're doing annual reviews. So,
Okay. I think you've had some retirements in public over there. Who is retired and who's moved up?
So Scott Robbins is retiring as Director of Campus Public Safety effective July 1, Petra?
Actually, today, this month, the end of this month.
Oh, end of this month. And so currently, Petra, do you want to comment on the search?
Yes, the posting for the.
Well.
Yeah.
The posting for the Chief of Police, the Director of Public Safety has been posted. We have engaged a search committee that's across several different departments to actually work with finding someone to fill that position. We'll name an interim while that process continues. We're looking to name that really soon, but Scott Robbins retires at the end of May. So the end of May, we will have a new person stepping in on June 1st for that. We look to have multiple places where we place the ad because we want a very diverse pool that we're considering, and we look to hire the best person we can to come here and continue what we've established here as a safe community.
Have you determined who the interim's going to be? And if you can't say, I understand.
The discussions are underway.
Okay, that's a fair answer.
Okay.
It's me, Art. I'm good.
We finally found something keeping. Are there any questions on the Clery Act update? Okay, hearing none. Chancellor, believe you're up for any comments that you
Sure.
might have.
Thank you so much.
Remembering
Mr.
that
Chairman.
I come along after you.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. First of all, I just want to congratulate Art Sparks for getting nominated and successfully acclimated and approved into continuing as chair. He's done a great job, and really look forward to all of us continuing to work with him. And we're grateful for the time. There's a lot of time that goes into preparing for the meetings, and really appreciate, Art, your diligence and your love for the university and your commitment to keep me accountable, which is daily. Couple of quick things for everyone. Last Saturday, we held a virtual commencement here on campus. I'm not sure how many of you got to watch, but we were able to confer well over 700 degrees on Saturday. It was a beautiful day. We had it outside live, streamed it Facebook Live, and we're able to not only announce the students' names, but digitally show a picture of them and tell if they graduated with honors and that sort of thing. Had incredible positive feedback from that, and I think students felt like while we hope to have an event in person in the future, this was a nice send-off, and I think gave some good closure. It was the end of an awkward semester, a lot of awkward moments, and but it was a great way to end things. Couple of quick updates. one of the things that we've learned that gets disrupted, that does not get disrupted during pandemic outbreaks, is construction. And so the Latimer building continues to roll on. If you were to be out there today, there's dirt movers and earth movers and lots of, it's a good thing people aren't here trying to park because we've lost a little parking over there, but still wonderful. We are on schedule with that building. And again, that will be the $65 million STEM building that's over there between sociology and the business and global affairs. So we're very excited about that. We are about to initiate, we've done some demolition, but we're about to do some more, as well as construction on the visitor stands on Hardy Graham. Our target is to have that completed by football season. Might be a little tough to make the first of the high school season, but looking to make it towards college. It will be, we'll drop the number. It's about seating for about 1,400 over there now. I think we're going to go to about between 750 to 800 seats, but it's going to, the look is going to more align with the home stands, which should make a really nice venue. And underneath will become, we're going to repurpose that for visitor locker rooms. So being able to get the visitors away from our fans, that's probably a pretty good thing, visiting players. Another big project that's going on that's going to add greatly to our quality of life is the city of Martin is doing a sidewalk project on the other side of University Street. So we will have, it will be pedestrian friendly along both sides of University in front of the campus, a badly needed improvement, but a perfect time to be doing it while there's no one here on a day-to-day basis. So we're very excited about that. We've talked a little bit about enrollment, and certainly that's great news. We're focusing now on retention, getting our students to come back who have been displaced. And Lauren and others filled out a survey a couple of weeks ago. Just tell us how you're doing. And any student that responded to that, we've certainly been reaching back out to and talking to. Our faculty have been great about keeping up with their current students and addressing needs. But for the entering students, we don't want them to go anywhere, the ones who are coming. So over the last 30 days, we've handwritten over 1,400 letters and postcards to members of the entering class, just encouraging them to come, and we'll continue to do that type activity through the summer. On a personnel front, I love it. It seems like every time we get a complete staff, there's a retirement, and we have to hire someone or someone moves on. But we have hired for Dean of College of Business Administration and Global Affairs, Ahmad Tatucci is coming to us from Eastern Washington. He will be starting in July. We're very excited about him coming in. He is a fantastic scholar and teacher, but he has an incredible sense of humor and a bit of charisma about him, and very student focused, and he's going to be a very welcome addition to our campus. Also, since we've met, we've hired our Vice Chancellor for Development and Alumni, Dr. Charlie Deal, and many of you know Charlie. He had most recently been Executive Director for Research, Outreach, and Economic Development. He's now going to be heading up our advancement unit, and we are beyond excited about having someone with Charlie's passion for the university, but certainly his skill to help us with our fundraising efforts. More good news out of fundraising. I'll tell you the feel-good story of the day. We decided to go out. We had a lot of students who were just disrupted when all this happened. They lost their campus jobs and just struggling. So we went out with a call, the advancement office did, to create a displaced student fund where we could do some mini grants to help students with expenses they'd incurred. And in just about 2 weeks, raised about $30,000 for that. And have been giving out $300 grants that students have used for rent. They have to apply for it, and so we can keep track of it. But it's been very exciting to see the call and appreciate our alumni and friends who were contributing to that. With that, I'll just let you know that sign off by saying it's been a crazy time. We're really working hard to make it as normal as we can for our students. But even given all the challenges that we're undergoing, I still am so excited about the strategic enrollment plan. I'm still encouraged about the development of these new academic programs and the hopes for getting folks back together in the fall if it's safe. I tell you, every time we have these meetings, this is I think my favorite job I've ever had. And even with the coronavirus, I feel the same way. So this is a great place to be, and it's a great day to be a Skyhawk.
You know, you didn't mention, but Devin Majors, who was the original student member here, there was an excellent article in Union City paper about his speech and what he did, and how he had come to UT Martin and appreciated it. He's going to continue getting his law degree at UT Knoxville, so he's one of your outstanding students.
He really is. Two-time SGA president, so he's great.
You know, this has been a different meeting than normal. I certainly have missed the interaction, that we have, but I think it's turned out pretty well. I know for Moniz it's worked out real well because your driving time's a lot less on this particular meeting, and Julia also. With that said, there are some of our members that will not be returning, and that will, I say they will not be returning. Their term ends, and they could actually be reappointed. Katie Ashley, of course, again, Katie had a daughter yesterday, and when I talked to one of her relatives this morning, she was doing fine, and I know she will continue to do fine. Chris Caldwell will be rotating off and replaced by Philip Smart. Chris, we appreciate everything that you've done for us and your insight from the faculty perspective. We also will enjoy Dr. Smart's perspective. Lauren, who I think, Lauren's still here. Lauren, we appreciate the students' perspective, and you will be rotating off, and Emma Hilliard, who we met earlier, had to drop off the call, will be taking your place, and I'm sure you can counsel her on exactly what she needs to tell us. But we appreciate those three people sincerely. They will be sorely missed if not reappointed, and I'm speaking of Katie there. But really, that's all I have. I appreciate everyone being on the call and working around this COVID-19. Anyone have any comments? If not, I will accept a motion to adjourn and a second.
So moved.
And I'm going to override, and we're not going to have a roll call on that. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Thank you so very much. You got to override.